The historical and biblical context. Have you ever stopped to think about what it's like to live without rules? Sounds liberating, right? But imagine a whole group of people, with no clear boundaries, trying to find their way in a vast and uncertain desert. What happens when freedom turns into chaos? That's exactly what happened to the Israelites thousands of years ago. They had just left behind centuries of slavery in Egypt. They were free, but at the same time, they were lost. In the desert, they weren't just a people without a home. They were a people without direction, without purpose, and, above all, without understanding what this new freedom meant. God saw this need. And that's where the 10 Commandments come in. They weren't just a set of rules, they were much more than that. They were a covenant, an invitation to a special relationship between God and His chosen people. The first commandment said, "I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods before me." But why was this so important? At that time, the world was filled with man-made gods. Gold, animals, even stars were transformed into objects of worship. God, however, offered something completely new, an exclusivity that challenged the beliefs of the time. He did not want to be just another one. He was, and is, the only true creator. Now, think about it, do we still have idols today? They are no longer made of gold or wood, but can be anything we make a priority in our lives: money, success, status, or even our pursuit of comfort. So, the question we need to ask ourselves is, what are we putting before God in our lives? Throughout this episode, we will explore what it means to put God first, how this commandment transformed the lives of people and how it can transform yours. The meaning of loving God above all things. Imagine for a moment that you are building a house. You choose a plot of land, draw up the plans, and start laying the bricks. But what if you ignore the foundation? You can finish the house, but all it takes is a storm to knock it down. The first commandment, "You shall have no other gods before me," is like that foundation. It not only guides but sustains our entire relationship with God and the world around us. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 6, verse 5, God gives us a glimpse of what it means to love Him completely. "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength." This statement invites us to surrender ourselves completely in 3 dimensions. Heart represents our desires and emotions. Loving God with our heart means aligning our dreams and passions with His purposes. Soul refers to the eternal part of who we are. It calls us to seek our identity and meaning in life in God, not in fleeting things. Strength speaks of action. Loving God with strength involves dedicating our time, energy, and resources to glorifying Him in everything we do. This love is not just theoretical, it is practical. Consider what Jesus said in Mark 12 verse 30 when asked about the greatest commandment: "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength." Jesus didn't just restate the law, but showed that this love must touch every part of who we are. But here's the key point: loving God is not a burden, it is a liberating choice. He calls us into a relationship where we are accepted, transformed, and empowered to live with purpose. A bit of background for context. When God gave the 10 Commandments to Moses around 1300 BC, the Israelites were surrounded by cultures that worshipped multiple gods and followed practices that often promoted fear and exploitation. Love for God, in this context, was revolutionary. It brought clarity and a sense of identity to a newly liberated people. Loving God with all your heart, soul, and strength is not just a nice idea. It is a solid foundation, like the foundation of a house. When we live this way, we discover a greater purpose, a peace that the world cannot offer, and a joy that is independent of circumstances. Now that we understand what it means to love God fully, let's talk about the modern challenges that try to steal that love. What keeps us from putting God first today? The challenges of modern idolatry. When you hear the word idolatry, what comes to mind? Maybe images of golden statues, ancient temples, or esoteric rituals. But what if I told you that idolatry never went away? It just changed its form. In ancient times, people carved gods out of wood, stone, or metal and put their trust in them. Today, our idols may be less visible, but they are no less powerful. They are in our desires, in the priorities we place above God. Here is the essential definition. An idol is anything that takes the place of God in our hearts. Ask yourself, what consumes most of my thoughts and energy? What do I place my trust in for happiness or security? If I lost that, would I feel like I lost everything? The answers to these questions can reveal the hidden idols in our lives. Facts to ponder. According to a report by Global Web Index, in 2023, people spent an average of 6 hours and 37 minutes per day connected to the internet. Think about it, almost a third of the day is spent online. The time we spend on social media, entertainment, and even work can quickly become a modern god, diverting our focus from God. The Bible warns us about the dangers of this distraction. In Matthew 6 verse 24, Jesus said, "No one can serve two masters, either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money." And it's not just money. It could be success, social approval, or even our desire for control. These gods promise us fulfillment, but always leave us empty. But how can we resist these modern idols? Here are 3 practical steps. Recognize the idol. Honesty is the first step. Ask God to reveal areas where something or someone is taking His place. Redirect your focus, prioritize prayer, study of the Word, and fellowship with other Christians. This helps realign our hearts with what really matters. Replace, don't just eliminate. It's not enough to remove an idol, you need to replace it with something meaningful. When we put God at the center, He fills the void that idols leave behind. Modern idolatry may be subtle, but its impact is profound. When we set aside these distractions and put God in the place He deserves, we experience a freedom and peace that nothing else can offer. Now that we've identified the challenges, let's explore how to live the First Commandment in our daily lives in a practical and transformative way. Living the First Commandment in everyday life. Putting God above all else in our lives may seem like a distant idea. After all, what does it mean, in practice, to live the First Commandment in our daily lives? Is it something reserved only for grand gestures of faith? Or can it be incorporated into our daily choices, no matter how small they may seem? The truth is that living the First Commandment is not just about avoiding idols. It is about cultivating a life centered on God, in what we think, do, and value. Here are 5 practical ways to apply this principle. 1. Start and end your day with God. Set aside the first and last moments of your day to commune with Him. A short prayer in the morning can align your heart and mind with what's important, while reflecting on the blessings of the day in the evening helps you maintain a grateful perspective. 2. Practice intentional gratitude. The psalmist wrote in Psalm 100 verse 4. Enter His gates with thanksgiving and His courts with praise. Making a daily list of 3 things you're grateful for is a simple yet powerful way to remember that all good gifts come from God. 3. Simplify your life. Look around you. How many things do we accumulate that end up competing for our attention? Ask yourself, does this bring me closer to God or distract me from Him? Simplifying your habits, routines, and even material items can help you focus on what really matters. 4. Give yourself to others. Jesus showed us that loving God is deeply connected to loving others. Find ways to serve, whether it's helping a neighbor, volunteering at a charity, or simply listening attentively. Small acts of kindness reveal God's love in action. 5. Trust in God's plan. In Proverbs 3 verses 5 to 6, we read, Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. Giving your cares to God and trusting that He is in control is one of the most profound ways to show your devotion. These practices may seem simple, but together they build a life that reflects the First Commandment. It's not about perfection, but about a daily pursuit to keep God at the center. And the most amazing thing is that when we put God first, we discover that He transforms every area of our lives, work, relationships, dreams, and even difficult times. In the next section, we will reflect on how loving God can transform not only our lives, but also the lives of everyone around us. The transformation of loving God above all. When we put God first, something extraordinary happens. Our perspective changes, our values transform, and the relentless search for satisfaction in the wrong places is replaced by lasting peace. But this change doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey, a process of realigning our hearts daily with the One who created us. The First Commandment is not just an instruction. It's an invitation to live a full life, where God is not just part of our routine, but the essence of it. When we love God above all else, we experience a transformation that spreads to everything we do, our choices, our relationships, and even how we face challenges. Imagine the impact we could have if each of us decided to live this way. Families would be strengthened, communities renewed, and a deeper sense of purpose would replace the confusion we so often feel. But here's the question. Today, what is taking the place of God in your life? Let this reflection guide your week. Take a moment to evaluate your priorities, ask God for clarity and courage to make changes, and trust that He will be with you every step of the way. And don't forget, in the next episode, we'll explore the Second Commandment and discover how it teaches us to honor God in practical and meaningful ways. If this content spoke to your heart, share it with someone you think will also be inspired. And of course, subscribe to the channel to continue this journey with us.